you're saying all of that, I had a thought maybe for the first time that the one thing I'm a really, really good at is being okay not being good at things. Almost too good at it. But I'm willing to just be, to try something new and not be that great at first. And I think that's one thing that's helped me as an entrepreneur because I'd try and be willing to fail, where a lot of people struggle with that. But for some reason, I don't know if I just didn't expect much out of myself. For some reason, I've always naturally been pretty good at being okay with being bad at something.
Welcome to Adulting Decrypted, the show where we break down the complex codes of common conundrums into logical living in effort to decrypt the code we call adulting. We're your hosts.
I'm Gene, and I freshly got my hair cut, so it's like really fluffy right now. I kind of love it.
I'm Gideon. I can't tell that Gene really got a haircut. Apparently, she cut 2 inches off the back, but I can't really tell. It does look a little bit nicer, though. So, yeah.
And I am Ashton, and I am just chilling. I've got nothing today. Normally I can think of something, got nothing.
And I'm Roscoe, the dad. I freshly got my hair cut as well. I do it once a week, whether I need it or not. But today, we're very excited for 2 reasons. One is this is officially our birthday. Granted, you're listening to it a week late, but this is our birthday. We just crossed a couple big milestones. How many downloads have we had, guys?
3,000. Whoa.
Woohoo! Awesome. Good
Woot
job.
woot.
Great work, team. And what?
Woot woot.
Oh, I thought you were going 3,012 to be exact.
I don't remember it.
Okay.
And then, what episode? We got 2 more episodes till we hit our what?
50th.
Congratulations, guys. Well done.
Crazy.
And today, not only is it our birthday, that's a super special day. Our birthday of our podcast, let's be really clear. Nobody's birthday around this table. But we also have a very special guest with us. Dell Major is a good friend of mine. He's taught me a lot of things. I hired him as a coach to help me when I needed some help professionally, business-wise, as well as personally, and taught me a lot about habits and having the right mindset, and those are the things that we're excited to have him here for the show. So welcome, Dell.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Way excited. Couple things to get started, just to level set. I've kind of briefly told the boys about your background with your business and what got started there, but do you mind walking us through kind of your young adult life, becoming an adult, and that story before we get into the power of habits and some of the other key points we want to talk about today?
Yes, I would love to, but I also have to get over being really distracted with just being so jealous about that you can have a podcast with your 3 sons. I'm thinking, wow, how rad is that? And you've done 50 together. That is like so big. So my wheels are like spinning. That's so cool that you guys get to do that together. And special that you did it and kept up with it and that you made it a year and you're like going strong. So props for that.
Thanks a lot. It means a lot to me coming from you, sir. Because I have mad respect for what you've accomplished and the way you put your family first. There's one of the things I was telling the kids is that you took an extended vacation with your family. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to our love episode, but one of the things we talk about for us that's super important is quality time, right? When these guys took the test, it all came back as quality time. And I know you did a big couple family trips, but that might be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. But those are super cool. One of those mad respects, so.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let me get over that. No, I really am. That's like super impressive, guys. So if you don't, and maybe you don't understand or realize that as your kids, you probably do. But I'm like, I need to figure out how to do that. Okay, cool. So about me, my quick story, and then you can figure out where we want to dive in and what we want to do. But I'm one of 9 kids, grew up in Salt Lake, in Rose Park, went to West High School. I'm number 4 in the lineup, and nobody in my family was really an entrepreneur per se, and I never really gave much thought to business or work or what I'd even do after high school. Actually, when the Saturday that came for me to take the SAT or ACT or whatever it was to get into college, I figured, I'm going to go to the community college anyway, so I'm going to go on a bike trip in California for 10 days with my buddies. And that's what we did. And, that was kind of my direction. But I started buying and reselling bike parts at a store in Salt Lake called NPS that finds, or that basically receives anything that can't get delivered from UPS. Roscoe knows a lot about that with his line of work. And they would sell it, so I would buy that and then sell it on forums at first. I'd go and say, hey, I've got a derailleur, and here's the model number on it. I don't even really know what it means, but it looks expensive. I'll sell it for 3 times more than I paid, and people would buy it. They'd send me money orders in the mail, and then I eventually started selling on eBay.
Wow, that's old school, right? I mean, going back to
Super
then.
old school. Forums, yeah.
Yeah, forums and checks. Do you guys know what a check is?
Yeah,
Yes, Dad.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
a money order, money
Oh, money order might be
legit
different.
thing.
Yeah, money order. Do you know what a money order is?
Wow.
Oh, okay.
I
Sorry.
feel
It's like
so
a physical
talked down to
Venmo.
right now.
Oh, my bad, Gene. Sorry.
So I would do that, and it went really well.
And,
So-
and was this in high school,
Go ahead,
or was this in high school, or was this a little bit
Yeah.
later?
It was in high school. It was my junior and senior year. And then for 3 months after my senior year, that's what I did until I went to, I saved about $10,000 and went to Portugal on my mission. And then got back, started doing it again, did a bout in multi-level marketing, learned that I wanted residual income but hated everything about multi-level marketing, or most things. There were some good things about it. And rode my bike from Canada to Mexico, had this epiphany of like, oh, you should totally work with your dad and sell bike parts full time. And so I quit the multi-level marketing, started selling online, and we started a company called Bike Wagon. He quit his job when I could pay him $3,000 a month. And then we grew that company to about $10 million in revenue over the next 11 years.
That's pretty cool.
What do you think, Gideon?
Well, I don't know if people know this, but I'm really into bikes and stuff. I think they're pretty sweet. I don't know. I've had the idea of doing that a lot. It's cool.
Well, the other thing that I think is kind of an interesting thing with Dell and you is the free spirit, right? What do you want to do after high school?
I want to go live in a van for a couple years.
Nice. Do you rollerblade too?
No.
Dang,
I
you would have
ride
if you grew up in the
BMX.
90s.
Yeah, probably.
That's what we did back then. I always wanted to run away as a kid, but I liked my parents too much. But I thought like running away would be so exciting to like just be on your own.
Gideon, have you had that thought process?
Not really.
Oh,
no.
okay.
I mean,
That's
awesome.
probably good. It's probably
Either that or
healthy.
you won't
It's
admit
very
it
healthy.
here.
Well, that's neat that you took that bicycle trip, had that epiphany, and you're able to listen to it, right? And you followed that passion.
And then my dad listened to it too, because he was the one, that kind of had to quit his job and jump into business with me. So it was a really good, it was a cool thing.
That's awesome.
And and actually a little bit more. I don't want to underplay it because, I think in life, a lot of things happen, a lot of things, there's a lot of chance and luck and whatever else involved. But that was one of the decisions that I made that really almost seemed like it was a lot more like it felt like divinely inspired. I was like guided in my mindset shift around, because I was really kind of committed to the other path that I was on. But I very much over 2 weeks completely changed my mindset and talked to my dad, and everything just fell into place and went really well from there. So I think it's really important just to kind of follow the different promptings you get, and expect things to go great. That there's like a path that could be amazing for you, and to always believe that and be willing to, even if it's hard or uncomfortable, to just say, well, it's kind of what I feel I should do. I'm just going to do it and trust that it's going to work out for me.
Thoughts on that, guys?
Well, I'd say I definitely agree with that. Paying attention to your feelings is super important, and then jumping on them when you get them is also just as important. Because I know, well, if you think about it, to keep it close to topic, this podcast was something where it was just originally a feeling. It was an idea. And then we're like, oh yeah, that'd be super cool. And then we go, you know what, let's do it.
And we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
We came out to the shed and said, okay, where do we start? And we're like, oh, maybe a name would be nice. And then we did call Mom out to help us pick a better name than what we originally thought. Because we need to have some maturity, Della, too, right? So it's good to find those outside advisors that you found in your father. It sounds like he had some of that wisdom and some of that helped you ground your personality, right?
Totally.
And then tell us a little bit, as you're growing the business, a lot of entrepreneurs say that they don't have time for themselves or their family, and they get distracted and get pulled away. How did you keep that all in check as you continued to develop and grow, who you were? Because you're a young man starting this, right? If I understood the story right, somewhere in your 20s, early 20s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really all I've done, from 17 and then really went full-time at 21. So I guess the first part of the answer is I didn't do well at it, and I was absolutely committed and focused to building my business, and that was like all that I had on my mind. Except, I did it was a year into it. I left and, did that bike trip from Canada to Mexico, because actually I'd still been selling online. So that was me leaving the multi-level marketing thing. But then 2 years later, we left when we only had 3 employees, some friends and I probably had a couple $1,000s to my name, all of which I spent on this trip. But we went to Europe for 2.5 months. We rode 3,500 miles from Amsterdam to Lisbon, saw some of the Tour de France, followed that for a few days. We did the running of the bulls. We, stayed in an apartment in Barcelona for a week. We stayed with random people that we met at church. Like, we had this amazing, cool experience. And we left. So I left my business a lot to do those types of adventures. So I always, and that was actually one thing that I took from my Canada to Mexico trip, that first trip that I went on. It's like, man, if I'm not an entrepreneur, I won't be able to do these types of things in the future, because I don't think most jobs will let you leave for a couple months.
That's probably a fair assessment.
And I wasn't a complete idiot as a kid. I'm like, I don't know if I can get a job that's going to let me do this. So I need to be an entrepreneur and make my own terms. But everything I did in my business was to help create freedom. And when it comes to like having balance, I had to figure a lot of that out by, being, too much of a workaholic and working a lot. Like at one point I even, kind of a funny story, I was working a lot, and I had to go to this conference at, like in Provo at 9 a.m. and I was sick the night before, and I woke up at 5:30 and started working and didn't really have breakfast, and I was, just so ill, but I still just got up and went to go to this trade show in Provo. I had to take a bunch of stuff to the post office on the way because we were selling things, and waiting in line at the post office, I was feeling really sick. I called my friend. I'm like, oh, you need to bring me some Pepto-Bismol. I'm really not in a good place, but I'm going to go pick these people up and we'll go to the conference. And I drop the call, walk up to the counter, and then have the thought, I need to go throw up in the garbage can. Sorry, this is kind of gross. But I'm like, and this is the thought. I'm like, I'm so burned out and tired and just pushing myself too hard. Like, oh, I'm here. I'll just leave my wallet and keys on the counter with the bags. I'll answer this phone call because my friend called back after I dropped the call. I start walking over to the garbage can to casually go and throw up in the garbage can. And I woke up on the floor because I passed out. And like, it was like a body reset. And then I woke up and, in a little puddle of blood because I had to get stitches in the back of my head. And
downplays it, little, small.
And and then I call my mom immediately. I was like, Mom, they're gonna probably want to they want to take me in an ambulance. Can you come pick me up? Ambulances are expensive, So I go to the hospital and they do some tests and nothing's wrong with me. I really think it was just I pushed myself too hard, and I had a few instances like that where I totally I'd go to work and I'd sleep there overnight, and then I'd come back and work, then I'd work all day the next day until the next evening, and then be totally burned out the next day, 3 days later or whatever. So I experimented a lot with just working way too much So that's that's a lot of how I realized that left without systems or priorities or ways to, balance myself, I would be a mess.
I love it. Did you guys ever catch yourself into a project that deep? Has that happened yet? He can't see your head.
Oh, I nodded yes. Long story short, yeah, I've had times like that where I just get so tired. But
and you just because you're creating or you're developing music or content.
Yeah, and I mean, even times when I was over in Australia, there would be times where you just crazy burnt because you're supposed to be done at a certain time, but then when you're done, you're not really done, and you just keep doing stuff. So
fair. No, I like it, and that's I like where you're going there with that, Dell, because you said really at the end of the day you got to where you were burnt, you're spent. It was something you really loved, you enjoyed, but then you had to step back and say, okay, how do I build a system or a process to maintain my direction? Right? I mean, is that fair? Am I restating that?
Yeah,
right?
and I would also say that as you're asking your sons, like, hey, have you been into something like that? And looking back for me, I was really into like rollerblading, and I built a half pipe once as a kid. But for the most part, and I got really into wrestling. But so I guess there were things that called a lot of me, but especially through school, it was hard for me I wasn't engaged and really excited about a lot of different things. So only as an adult, was I able to, like, when I could figure out some of my own things, realize that I had this like massive energy reserve, so, and I guess I just say that speaking to the power of like when you can find things that you really align with, that you love, that all of us have the potential to be really jazzed and really motivated. So I hate when people label others as unmotivated or, oh, they're slacker or whatever. It's like, it's in there. Maybe they just haven't had the conditions come out right to call, to show, to have to show up right in a really motivated way.
No, that's a great call out, and I think the problem is a lot of times we force direction, right? As parents, right, and as society, we're like, hey, this is the success, right, and this is what it looks like, and if you're not fitting in that mold, therefore you're not successful, right? Because most people would have looked at you taking a month to go ride from Canada to Mexico and going, dude, are you wasting your life? For me, you would have stressed me out if I was your dad and you're like, hey, I got $2,000 in my pocket. I'm taking everything I got and I'm going on a trip to Europe. I'd be like, Dell, that's cool, but are you sure that's the right decision? What else could you do with that $2,000, right? That would have stressed me out. Is that probably fair? Do you think Dad would say something like that to you guys?
Oh, totally. No doubt about that.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you followed you, right? To develop you and to find you, because without some of those experiences, you wouldn't have become who you are. You told me a story one time about sleeping in an airport.
Oh yeah, all the time. I've had 10 to 14 nights in an airport, probably.
Yeah, there was one where you kept trying to go, am I going to get on the plane today? Am I not going to get on the plane? What was that? I can't remember
Which one? Well, I got stuck in Madrid for 7 days once on a buddy pass, and I was committed to not buying a one-way ticket back to America, and that I would use my buddy pass. So I was like, I had like a buddy pass army of other people. There were like 5 other people that didn't make the plane, and it grew. So we were like the buddy passers waiting, and I was like, hey guys, don't worry about it. People are crying. Or like, we're gonna get in tomorrow, and today we're gonna go explore. Let's go get some McFlurries at McDonald's, and we'll go sleep in the new terminal tonight. It's gonna be amazing. I was like the ringleader of the buddy pass people.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. I thought that was pretty funny. 7 days to be that committed to the outcome. So,
well, if I can interrupt, something that I was thinking about that you talked about is, in school there was nothing really that got you excited enough to work yourself like crazy. And I think for me, that's important to think about too. And I think about Gene and Gideon and recognizing things that they are going through that I went through in high school and that I still go through in college and whatnot. But just the idea that we don't have to enjoy everything that comes across our path, as far as school is concerned or life is concerned generally, but that we got to keep an eye out for those. Taking it back to the beginning, we keep an eye out for those feelings and our emotions, because sometimes we'll get something like, oh yeah, that might be kind of cool, and and recognizing that that's a different feeling than, oh, I have to do my homework. I have to go do math. But that might be super cool. I want to go out and do that. Like, I know, Gideon, you're like, oh, you know what might be super fun? Having a track in our backyard. And then you, like, once you got permission and then some, you went out and tore a massive track in the yard and you had fun with it and you spent countless hours on it. And it was easy to do, I'd imagine. I mean, making the track wasn't easy, but spending the hours was not a burden compared to doing homework.
Yeah, no, not even close. I mean, sure, you could get tired or whatever for shoveling for 5 hours straight, but it was worth it and it was fun. Like, even though, I don't know, you're sweaty, it's dirty, it's hot, but it's still a lot of fun just making something that you can benefit off of.
Right, and I think that's the part that Dale was getting to, that once you find something that jazzes you, you can keep at it, and it's not a burden, much like homework is. It's cool.
I love that example. Yeah, totally. And also keeping that belief that, like, there is something amazing there for each of us, and there is a path where we can be really motivated, and if you haven't found it yet, to like stay very willing to just keep trying and try new opportunities and try things, and because eventually things will always work out. I think if you believe that, it's a whole lot more likely to happen.
So here's the $10 question. If you're 17 and haven't figured that out, do you quit?
Oh, absolutely not.
What if you're 23?
I think you stay on, well, of course, right? Everybody, we just know you stay on the hunt, but you, I think that the belief part of, as long as you believe and keep trying, and I don't want it to be all generic advice, like, oh, keep shooting for the stars, kids, everything's going to be great for you. But it really is that, like, as you're looking in your backyard and you see, wouldn't it be rad if there were a track back there? And you have this vision for your life. Like, if you can have that big picture of, like, how rad would that be? Interesting. Whoa. And then eventually you start to make it happen in real life. That's amazing. And that's like when I built a half pipe, as a kid too. I think my 7th grade summer, for months before, I was like doodling on paper, like, oh, how rad would it be to have a half pipe, and then it started to materialize more and more and became a thing, So
yeah, I've drawn so many countless ramps on homework and other sheets of paper that I've received during school and everything. Like, we're supposed to be writing like notes or something. It's like, what happened when your friend was bullying you or something? What did you do? And I'm just like, half pipe. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like,
well, so I think that's why it's so important to realize, like, we all show up in a different way, and school never really made me feel like a winner for the most part. Like, I won the 6th grade spelling bee, but in 6th grade, I got D- in every other topic except for spelling. My teacher, I'm going to blame my teacher for half of that, but I wasn't, I wasn't super motivated in some of those things. Like, so finding what motivates you and realizing, like, you're probably kind of a visionary, right? And like those types of things, being willing to focus for a long time on a certain thing and see something that everybody else doesn't see, and helping convince them to let you go your way. So finding things, that allow you to exercise that skill that you already have, that you've already been developing. I think it's really important that we each find that, because not everybody's like that, and realizing that that's a special skill that you have and it's very unique to you, and that not everybody's doing that. Where as a kid, sometimes you think, like, when I was growing up, I was like, oh, everybody has this skill. It's not just unique to me. Where as I got older, I'm like, whoa, I'm like 1 in 50 people. I'm really good. If you put me in a room of 100 people, I'm like one of the best at that thing. And not everybody's like that. So I think it's really important to just not try to be too different from yourself. Sure, like, we all need to learn to read and write, but and do some basic arithmetic, but learning what you're naturally really good at. So when you find so you can find opportunities that use that skill.
I like it. Now, you said, one thing I liked that you said, Del, is originally it was workaholic and you found all this extra energy, but you realized that it maybe wasn't the direction you wanted to go. And when I say that, you need to put systems in places and checks in places. And how did you start to learn? How to do? Because one of the things that turned me towards you is on the self-help gurus, habits, those kind of things. How did you start learning all that? Where did you go for that? Obviously not traditional school, I wouldn't imagine.
Yeah. Sorry for completely dodging that question earlier. I think you might have asked that already. So I've read a lot of self-help books and always wanted to do different. What it came down to for me was I didn't want to just be good at business. And I figured, great. I work hard. I'm going to be able to, if I give my whole life to something, I'll be able to do good at it, to do a good job in that area. I wanted to be good in other areas too. I wanted to have a balanced spiritual life. I wanted to be in good shape. I wanted to learn French for a long time, right? Like I wanted to write in my journal every day. There were all these things. If I ever got motivated, I would make a list. And I don't know if you guys do this too, right? You're motivated. You're like, oh, here are the things that I'm going to start doing, right? And I would make that list and then fail again and again and again and again. And I remember, this was in 2014. We actually we had 3 kids at the time. We took them to France and we rode about 1,200 miles across France, Switzerland, and into Germany. And in that time, it kind of hit me like, Dale, you make these lists every 3 months and you don't, you've talked about writing in your journal since 2006. Like your journal in 2006 says, I'm going to write in my journal every day. I'm going to study French and learn how to speak French. And I'm going to speak these 4 languages because I wanted to be a linguist, whatever. And I didn't do any of those things. And it kind of hit me hard. And from there, that's where I got really motivated to say, finally, this time I'm going to figure out a way to make this happen and make these changes. So, and it was from there, that kind of turning point that, I started studying French. Within the next 6 months, I was studying French every day. I've written in my journal every day for like 2,510 days. That's almost 7 years.
If you're counting.
I keep it just a daily log of, I'm on day like 2511 or something today.
Star date, whatever. No.
Yeah. I've been, I read my scriptures every day. Just all those things that I always wanted to do that didn't. It just hit me that, Dale, you've got a company that you don't even have to work in to make money. Like you can take 2 months off. You have all the choices, but you continue to still just fail in these areas. And then that's when I finally pulled everything together to make the changes.
That's interesting. So once again, it was following that inner voice, right? The inner voice that kind of said, hey, you're doing good. As a matter of fact, you can take 2 months off, but how do you do better? Right? I mean, that's kind of that pursuit, it sounds like a little bit.
Yeah. Just I expected more out of myself. Like, man, I can I hated making lists that I didn't trust. So I wanted to put a system in place and develop the habits that I could trust. And really, I read the book The Power of Habit the first time, and I don't think I'm overly intellectual, and I think I just missed a lot of the point. Then I read it again on that trip, and I thought, oh my goodness, I finally believed that that you can rewire yourself, and that things can become habitual. Where you understand that it takes 21 days to make a habit. If you do something for 21 days, it's not hard anymore. But I don't think we believe that not hard part, because if we did believe it, everybody would just say, I'm just going to be disciplined for 21 days and then I'll reprogram myself like a robot, But we don't do that. So I finally believed that and learned for myself how to implement and make new habits. And that's how, I've been able to start those other habits. I cut sugar from my diet a year ago. I'm exercising a whole lot more than I ever have. I've just changed a lot of things through applying some of those principles that I used to just always struggle with.
Do you guys have any questions on that side of the conversation at all? Any thoughts?
No, I just feel like it's just some interesting things to just think about and be like, hey, self, what are we doing that we should be doing for 21 days to reboot ourselves? just, I don't know.
Just get you thinking about like what you want to change, I guess. Yeah.
You know, I kind of was thinking about something different because it's talking about a discipline for 21 days. And you said something along the lines of, oh, just discipline yourself from 21 days, and then you're someone completely different there on out. And Dad kind of saw me. I kind of laughed under my breath because I'm aware, at least for myself, that that's not how it works. Because recently been counting calories, as our listeners probably know, and been doing it for 65 days or so now. And it's just been a constant effort every day, something that I had to think about. And recently finished reading a book about this guy who was constantly overcoming obstacles and talking about how to be more disciplined and going beyond our perceived limitations. And one of the things that I gathered from that book is that motivation and discipline are two entirely different concepts. Because it's really easy to be motivated for a project for a limited amount of time, but in order to keep yourself permanently disciplined, it's a mental exercise that we continually need to keep strengthening. So that's kind of the thing I latched onto as you're talking about it.
Awesome. Yeah, and that book, The Power of Habit, they say like, hey, it's not 21 days. It's really more like 60 to 90 based on the complexity, with the studies we've done or whatever. But, I know that after 2,500 days, it takes me 0 effort to write in my journal. It just happens. Even if I'm tired or have no willpower, I just, get in and dictate, what I'm feeling. Same thing with several things. So that's cool.
Well, I appreciate that part of the conversation, right? Because Dell, the reason why I asked what he read, what he studied, was because Dell turned me on really more to Audible. I'd use some of it, but how many titles do you have? Do you dare to share?
If I count my wife's historical romance things, 410, I think.
Yeah, pretty good collection of So that's because you got me thinking about that, and that's where Ashton, in all fairness, read that book, right?
Yep.
A good friend of mine recommended it, and I'm like, Ashton, you got to listen to this one. This one's pretty powerful, and we've listened to a couple books, right after each other, and go, what do you think of this? Kind of spurs the debate or the conversation, right? And I think that's part of it, is just being willing to learn, right? So if you don't know what you like, that's why I asked the question earlier, and Dell, you probably missed it. I got a couple last because Gene's 17, Gideon's 14, Ashton's 23, right? It was kind of a canned question, but we're a group of believers that you don't give up trying. You keep looking for that opportunity or that thing that's that you feel like you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of becoming an adult, is to say, okay, I don't have to learn now that I've graduated high school. I get to learn what I want to learn. And I think that's really important for us to contemplate and to think about and say, okay, what do I want to learn now? Right? What do I want to develop? What skills?
Yeah, I love that.
So as far as habits go, conversations, thought processes, anything you got there for us, Dell? Any thinking on that?
Well, I would say, I liked Gene's thought. That was you saying, hey, self, what should we work on today? Just that idea of if we can find things that we're really excited about, then it's not work. You don't want to go and, so I think the more that you can, in the course that we went through, Roscoe, we talked first for, over the 4 months, we talked about purpose and values, and then we talked about goals and everything else. And only then did we move on to habits, right? So if you're going to reprogram yourself and say, hey, self, what should we do? How should we change today? The first conversation is to say, like, hey, self, what the heck do we care about? Like, how do we want the backyard to look? Looking at Gideon's project, building the ramp in the backyard. It's like, for months he's just thinking about, I would love to have, jumps and a track in my backyard and some place to ride whatever you're riding there. dirt bikes or whatever, BMX, whatever it is. That would be cool, and you see that, and then there's motivation, there's excitement, and then you start to scope it out and say, this is what I want it to actually look like. And then the habit came in, oh, I work on it for 5 hours a day, That's like the habit. Once you have all that vision for it, to do something as crappy as digging for several hours a day, lots of hours a week, however long it took, isn't really that hard, because you've set yourself up so well with what the end goal is going to look like and why you're so excited about it. So I think with habits, it's the same thing. Like, if you're out of shape, are you okay long term with being out of shape? If you are, it's going to be really hard to change some of those beliefs and implement those habits. But if you surround yourself with people that that you want to be like, and they're different from you, then you can say, wow, I really want to be. I joke about my younger brother a lot. He's always in better shape than me, and he always kind of pushes me to get in better shape. And not by telling me, just by him being in really good shape. I'm like, whoa, I want to do that. Like 2 weeks ago, he ran a 100-mile race. And that inspires me. So I'm inspired, and then it goes into like, oh, how should I change my habits so I can be more like Bruce? I think it's really important to be inspired and surround yourself and put things in your head that you're excited about. And then the changing the habits part can be pretty easy, because you're so excited about doing something.
I know what I imagined with changing habits. It was mostly like do it yourself type of thing. Like, hey, I want to become a better BMX rider or whatever. And then you hang out with the same people that haven't really been doing any of that, and you kind of like lose motivation, or you just like stop working on it. But I like the idea of surrounding yourself with the people that help you with your goals, the people that you want to be like. Because when you surround yourself with better people than you want to become a better person, just generally. And like that's why you ride with people that are better than you. I know that's a common thing that a lot of bikers talk about, at least like mountain bikes and everything. But I don't know. I thought it was cool that it was the exact same idea.
Well, that's why I let you guys hang out with me when we're skiing. That way you guys all become better skiers. Oh, no? Come on. A little bit of love there. No,
that's what it is, Dad.
That's what we spent our birthday doing, right? For the podcast.
Something I'd add there, too, is because I feel like that's a piece of advice a lot of people, at least my age, have heard of, is that surround your 5 closest friends will determine who you are. And I always thought about it as like the people that you're close to will be able to teach you the skills that you need to. And so for me, I'd always thought about it like, reaching out and asking them, what do you think about this thing? And then they tell you about it. And while that is true in some respects, a lot of respects, it's like you were saying, Dale, is purely just them being themselves. Surrounding yourself with people that inspire you to be better. Therefore, you start to try and change, and then just by some sort of you just glean that from presence and I don't know, impression that you get from those around you. So.
Yeah, I like that. And as you were talking too, besides my 7-year-old coming in and saying, "Did my silver sell?" It did not sell. He didn't get laughing gas at the dentist yesterday, so I gave him $20.
Oh, there you go.
Give him laughing gas, and I was like, "Dude, you don't need laughing gas. You're tough." And he's like, "Great." He didn't get it, so I gave him $20 after, and then I immediately convinced him to buy 5 pieces of silver from me, to list on eBay to sell for $40. So we'll see. And he's been checking with me every couple hours to see if it's sold yet. It is not sold. But anyways, pretty funny.
I love the enthusiasms there, right? Once again,
yeah.
Was he passionate about silver yesterday? Before the dentist?
No. He was passionate about, I told him confidently he could double his money in 2 weeks. I'm like, if you buy these pieces of silver from me, they will sell on eBay for more, and I will give them to you what I paid for them. So
see,
he should double his money.
that proves your principle, though, right? He wasn't excited about silver until you expounded it to him, and he's like, now I've got the energy to ask Dad about silver.
He's totally excited. In response to that, question about, told a lot, hey, you become like who you spend time with, and your parents want you to be with good friends and whatever else, like, of course. It's also one other way that I've thought about it is, like, you're willing to, there are certain friends that you would probably say you would act differently around. You'd probably show a certain SNL, YouTube segment to them where you wouldn't show other friends, and you definitely wouldn't show your mom, right? So, like, depending on who we want to be and the kind of, so I like to think a lot about, like, I'm the kind of person who, and we're all the kind of person that's a, dirt ball sometimes, right? Like, we all have the potential to not be that great, and we all have the potential to be really good, and we're the same person. So, there are people that when we're around them, we're better, and we become better versions of ourselves. So I like to think about that a lot too, in regards to, like, who we spend time with. Some people just demand more excellence, and if we want to become, we just have to very deliberately choose what we want to, how we want to be and how we want to become, and that's where the crowd we spend time with really dictates that or influences it.
I think that's insightful. I never even would have thought to go there. And Dale, one thing I wanted to go back on just a step, because I like where we're at. No, I like where we're at on that. Is I didn't realize for that whole class that you set us up to actually go through the vision side of it first, right? That's how I didn't even grasp that. That's how naive I was to the whole concept. But really trying to figure out, what do I want, right? So if I was to put words into your mouth, it sounds like we can define our own version of success. Is that
totally,
is that a fair statement?
I think you have to, because if Gideon lets somebody put him into an accounting job where he has no creative freedom, no freedom into saying, like, what he's going to do and what he's going to create and whatever else, like, he's probably not going to be all that jazzed about creating good accounting habits.
I wouldn't
right?
stay in accounting.
But if he's like a creator and wants to, be free thinking and do whatever else, and then there's going to be so much energy that comes into that other process. So I think we absolutely, based on our wiring and who we are and who we value, have to decide, what our terms of success, what success looks like for us, and that's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, I'm a believer of that, obviously, but it took me till I was like 37. One day I woke up and said, "Why am I buying crap I don't need to impress people I don't like?" Sold the boat, sold the big truck, and kind of said it wasn't. I mean, it was a big excursion. It wasn't the typical truck, but said, "Wait a second. What matters most to me, right? Some of my freedom, some of that ability to entrepreneur, try some things I hadn't tried before." So yeah, I do believe that we can define our own success, and I think that's critical as you become an adult to look around and say, is this fun for me? I think, Ashton, a couple weeks ago you shared the Jim Carrey clip along these same lines of his dad playing the safe route, right? And this has got us thinking, as far as becoming an adult, we need to define our own paths. And it's one thing I'd like to point out, though, it's still okay to dual path. But once you know where you're supposed to go, try and figure out how to get there as soon as possible. And that's where we can start creating those habits and that change. Anyways.
Awesome.
I like where you're at on that.
What would, like, kind of my own thing, what would you suggest for somebody who wants to go in a whole bunch of different ways? For me, for an example, I really like riding my BMX bike. I love to do that. I really want to do YouTube. I think that'd be super sweet. I want to weld, and I just
and you want an airsoft gun. Yeah. I know you showed it to me.
I want to do airsoft. I think videos on that would be cool and everything and whatever, with a whole bunch of friends, and I just don't know how to create that many habits, and if I should do it all at the same time, or how I should manage.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, a few thoughts. And by no means am I the expert, but you can't do everything at once, so you have to prioritize. And is your question like, I want to do these 5 things, how can I do it all? Or is it something different?
Yeah, how can I do them all at the same time and grow in all of them?
Yeah. Well, you can't be amazing at everything. But are we supposed to be good at everything we do?
No.
No, but sometimes doesn't everybody say, like, you need to give your 100% effort. You need to try hard, right?
Well,
Where one thing that I think that you need to accept mediocrity in certain areas of your life, essentially. And I want to dive into that a little more, but I want to be a really amazing dad, and I want to be great at what I do professionally, but I want to be like an average or below average member of my HOA association. I want to be a good friend, but I want to be a better father probably, because I care about my family more, right? So we kind of have to decide what buckets. So when I started learning French, I want to be mediocre at French. So for 5 years I've studied, I guess 5 or 6 years, I've studied a couple minutes a day, so I can, read and understand most of what I read in French. And so I'm mediocre. I'm not great. And with fitness, I've also not I'm not super ripped, but I've done a pretty good job at being more fit. So I think you have to decide, you can't go and be a top YouTuber and a top, airsoft competitor and a top BMX guy and everything else. But if you just say, I think airsoft's cool and I'd like to have a gun and mess around with it every once in a while, or I'd like to have a YouTube channel and I'm willing to invest this much time, you just have to decide you only have so much energy to put towards things. So just ranking those things, but you don't have to do all or nothing. You could say, I'm just going to do, I have a guitar in my corner over here. I've owned it for a year, and most days I pick it up for a couple minutes and play different chords. That's it. And I want to be able to play songs to my kids in the next year or so. So I'm learning different new chords, and I'm spending for how long I've done it, I'm really bad at the guitar. But that's just part of the strategy.
Intentionally bad, though, right?
Yeah. I'm intentionally bad. I learned how to play Hymns Made Easy on the piano in 2 years because it was maybe a year and a half, because I'm I'm just going to sit at the piano every day for at least a song. And my first two weeks was me learning where the middle C was and the different keys on YouTube videos and everything else, and learning how to read music. But I just committed to sit in the seat for a little bit, for at least 5 minutes. Then eventually it was just one song, and that was enough over time to do it, to get a very basic proficiency at it. And then I moved to guitar.
Do you understand the answer there?
Yeah. Oh boy, I moved my chair. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just prioritizing again.
And really deciding where you're going to be fully vested, it sounds like to me, right? Because some things, at least from what I got from what Dell said, is he's going, look, do you guys know what an HOA is? We don't have a homeowners association. He's like, look, I really don't care about that, so I'm not really going to be, I'm not going to spend much time in it, right? But he wants to be a great dad. He's like, I want to be a good friend, but I want to be a great dad, right? So when you're balancing competing efforts, it's saying, what one item am I going to be great at is really where that question has to come back to, right?
Yeah,
and I think
that's that.
Yeah, that's a good. That's insightful for me to rebalance some of those things and say, what am I okay not being the best at? And I think that's where a lot of us struggle, because there is a misconception that you can be great at everything, and I truly do agree with Dell that, I came up with a saying a little while ago that you can be great at anything as long as you're willing to give up those things you don't care about, right? And most of us aren't willing to give up so many things to be great at just one thing.
Totally. As you're saying all of that, I had a thought, maybe for the first time, that the one thing I'm a really, really good at is being okay not being good at things. Almost too good at it. But I'm willing to just be, to try something new and not do be that great at first. And I think that's one thing that's helped me as an entrepreneur, because I'd try and be willing to fail, where a lot of people struggle with that. But for some reason, I don't know if I just didn't expect much out of myself. For some reason, I've always naturally been pretty good at being okay with being bad at something.
That took a turn in this conversation that I was not expecting, right? I mean, I didn't think that maybe even the title of the podcast is almost, it's okay not to be good, right? Because that's the only way you can be great at other things, right? I mean, that's very, besides the dad, is there anything else that's like an example you could give of that, Del? Of sometimes that you've made that conscious decision to just be great at one thing or two things, or
I don't want to be a deadbeat spiritually. Like, I want to do good at that. I want to do good at my family, and just like, I feel that a lot of my life purpose is to, I love the coaching groups that I run and helping people get more out of their potential and believe that they can do things. So I want to be really good at that. But I also came from that after learning about my, and I think that if you guys haven't taken the Clifton Strengths Finder test, I think that's a really good, like, easy, inexpensive personality test that points out some of your strengths. And based on that, I've spent a lot of time really trying to hone and get really good at those things. But yeah, other examples, those are kind of the examples. I wanted to be good professionally, and I want to be great at my family, kind of in service roles.
No, I think that's powerful. I really got a lot from, here's a follow-up question to something you said earlier. Can you still play Hymns Made Easy? Can you still play some of the piano, or did you stop?
I sit down every few weeks and I say, let me play Near My God to Thee, and get it to go. But
no, that's fun.
Yeah,
I think that's fun because that gave you that exposure that you wanted, right? And rounded off some skill that you wanted. So even after you learn the guitar enough, there'll still be times that you'll sit down and play, but you don't have to do it daily to be able to keep that habit, right? So
yeah,
to me, that's
it also taught me that, hey, if I want to be good enough to play hymns at church or for my family home evening at whatever, I'd have to take 6 months of real practice where I'm practicing for like half an hour, like real work, because I realized how complicated some of the other things were, and how well or not well I learned that type of thing. It doesn't come super naturally for me, I don't think. So it was good to get exposure to realize how far down that road I wanted to go too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Validate that might not be a strength.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. No, that's neat. Well, good. Do you guys have any other questions for Del, or anything that we're not asking you that we probably should ask, or any advice you'd give to budding young adults or parents of adults, young adults? Am I saying that right? Okay. 3 head nods.
I think you're saying it right. I don't know how else you'd say it.
Okay.
So.
I think you guys have asked good questions. I don't really have anything else. I think you talk about the Audible habit. I think for, like a great book on habits is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. I like that a lot. It's an interesting, pretty easy book to read because there's a lot of stories. And then another book that really helped me is called Goals by Brian Tracy. I've probably read it 20 times. And it's short, probably 2.5 or 3 hours on Audible. So I would say that I think anybody that wants to, change something should read those 2 books. But yeah, no, you guys are awesome. This has been fun.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Adult and Decrypted. We really enjoyed having this week's conversation, and we hope you did as well.
If you ever want to comment on the topics, you can send us a message to our website, adultingdecrypted.com. Our email, adultingdecrypted@gmail.com, or through our Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts at adultingdecrypted.
If you have any topics for the show that you would like us to talk about, or if you are a parent and want us to talk about something your kids should know, send us a message on any of the accounts mentioned. If you'd like to be a guest or have an idea for someone you think we should have on our show, feel free to send us an email detailing your thoughts to adultingdecrypted@gmail.com. Adulting is teamwork.
We have merch. If you want to show off your Adulting Decrypted pride, check out our website, adultingdecrypted.com, or our partner website with shop.spreadshirt.com/adulting-decrypted.
Lastly, if you enjoyed the show, please consider supporting us on our Patreon at Adulting Decrypted. Along with the benefits that come with our Patreon, and trust us, there are some pretty good ones in there, you will not only be helping us continue in the effort to make great content, but you will be part of a community of individuals all trying their best to adult.
We appreciate you listening, enjoying, and leaving your positive reviews. Now, the special song from Gene and Gideon.
Like an adult, making myself better for the very first time.
Like an adult, learning habits and how to better affect my life.
Better affect my life.